Folks, last night in Kansas City, I moderated a town hall there where residents talked about police issues, discrimination in the police department, how they wanted to hold politicians accountable when it came to local control. And one of the things that I said to them was, look, make them sign a contract. That's one of the things that Black Voters Matter is doing when it comes to politicians there in Pennsylvania. And they plan to take this all across the country, saying, look, sign a contract saying what you will do to protect voting rights. Joining us right now is Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter, joining me from Atlanta. Cliff, glad to have you here. Y'all have been taking these ads out in papers all across the state. This is what people don't understand. In many ways, this is what many people have done. This is what the right, all the people who are anti-taxes have done, making people sign tax pledges, and then when they were elected, hold it up saying, you signed this pledge, we expect you to follow through.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Roland. Yeah, let me start off by saying that we started this ad campaign with the Philadelphia Tribune, which is, as you probably know, one of the oldest Black-owned newspapers, the oldest in the state of Pennsylvania, one of the oldest in the country. And so, again, shout out to Black-owned media like Black Star Network. But yeah, we took these ads out and we're calling on these candidates to sign these contracts, because what we don't want to have happen is that, we mobilize voters and Black voters come out voting for these candidates, but there's nothing concrete to hold them accountable to. We wind up sending 2 more or 3 more Joe Manchins to the Senate, and people wind up having people that say, oh yeah, I like voting rights, I just don't know if I want to vote for this bill, or I'll vote for this bill, but I'm not going to vote for filibuster reform, or I believe in voting rights, I just don't believe for voting rights for the 700,000 residents of DC. So what we want to do is get them on paper. We want to see some signatures on paper where they're telling us what it is that they're going to commit to do in regards to these 3 specific aspects of voting rights. And it's important that we do that, because a lot of times you'll have people telling you what they did in the past, right? Which is important, right? Like where you stood in the past, and more importantly, how willing you were to fight for that, right? Like a Malcolm Kenyatta, who doesn't just tell us what it is that he's going to do. We've seen him out there fighting for voting rights. I was at a rally with him in DC in the midst of the summer. So what you've done in the past is important, but sometimes these candidates will say, well, I co-sponsored such and such bill, I co-sponsored DC statehood, or I co-sponsored John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Well, that doesn't mean a whole lot. Joe Manchin co-sponsored, in fact, he wrote the Compromise Freedom to Vote Act, and then he voted against filibuster reform in order to get his own compromise passed. So we don't want to just hear about what you co-sponsored in the past. We want you to tell us and tell the public and put it in writing what it is that you're going to do in regards to voting rights.
And see, the reason signing the contract is important, because what it says is, oh, you have a choice. Sign it or you don't sign it. And those candidates that do, then Black Voters Matter tells the public, this is who actually signed it. This is who didn't sign it.
That's right. That's right. And when we put out I did a tweet earlier today announcing that we were doing the ads and putting the image of the ad out there. And before I could even put my phone away, Malcolm Kenyatta had already just gave a very simple response. I'm in, right? That's all it takes. But, we got people who will try to say, well, I did this in the past, or look at my website. It says I support. We don't want to see what's on your website. It's a very simple question. Can you sign this or not? Do you believe in these 3 things or not? If so, just say so, right? It shouldn't be that difficult. If you've done so much to say that you believe in the past, then just say, yes, I'm signing today. That's all we're asking for. That shouldn't be a lot. And what we're saying to these candidates is, are you willing to commit to voters that you are asking to commit to you? They're going to be out there all weekend going around, and including going around to Black voters, asking Black voters to commit to them. But are you going to commit to us? That's all we're asking for them to do. And all it takes is a very simple response, whether it could be social media, it could be by email. We emailed their offices. It could be by phone, whatever it takes. But we want to see those signatures on paper, and we want to see it public. That's what we're demanding, because at the end of the day, it's voting rights, and we've said this before, and you talk about it all the time. It's voting rights that lets our movement on all these other issues be possible, whether it's reproductive justice or racial justice, fighting police violence, all of the economic justice, all these issues. We can't get a people's agenda if we don't have governance that reflects the people, and we can't have that type of governance if we don't have our voting rights.
But Cliff, this is also why I have been saying to people, you also have got to be mobilized. You've got to be organized. See, it's real easy for one celebrity to come out and say, I want this. I want to see this. But if you don't have people behind you, if you don't have an infrastructure, then you can't do these things. And I think that's also the mistake that so many people have made in the past, where they just think that, oh, well, this person said this. Yeah, we getting behind that. No, 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 no. When you're able to sit there with a candidate and say, now, you know, if you don't sign this, you do know we got a mailing list. You do know we have cell phones. You do know we can activate people. And that was the thing I said last night in Kansas City. I said, if y'all are able to mobilize and get 40,000 people to commit to voting your way in the election next year, I said, ain't a politician in the city going to ignore you because you have mobilized and organized.
That's right. And we encourage everybody. I say it all the time. There's a role in this for everybody. Everybody's got a role to play. And that's why we're doing the 1 Million for Voting Rights campaign. We're trying to get 1 million people to sign on to this pledge that they're willing to fight for voting rights. And that can be fighting with their votes. It could be fighting by going to a town hall and waiving, as you said, waiving this contract at the town hall or at the candidate forum and saying, we want you to sign on to this contract. There's a role that everybody can play with this. And guess what? If voting rights isn't your issue, pick your issue. You know, if your issue is racial justice and there's a particular act that you want to get, whether it's George Floyd or the Breathe Act that Moving for Black Lives was talking about, or whatever it is, whatever the, student debt, whatever your issue is, get it on paper and get a promise and get it up front and get it publicly so that we can hold these folks accountable. Can folks lie? Yeah, they could put their name on this contract and then get in there and do something, different. But it's much more difficult for them to do. You know how it is, Roland. You go to the bank and you sign on to something or whatever it is. Anytime you put your name on something, there's a higher level of accountability. And so that's what we're demanding of these candidates. And we really need to be doing this on a range of issues. We're pushing this voting rights issue because we believe that it's important that we keep it front and center in this election cycle. But we support other groups, just like we support Poor People's Campaign and what's going on in D.C. on the 18th and those issues of low wealth communities. We support that too. We need a contract dealing with those issues as well. We need a whole series of contracts by which we can hold these candidates accountable. They cannot keep coming trying to get our votes and not coming with something concrete that we can hold them accountable to.
Well, I give a perfect example, Cliff. There are people who are saying, well, President Joe Biden never actually said that he was going to cancel student loan debt. Well, guess what? If there was an organization out there that actually had that and said, you want our endorsement, sign the pledge. Then, all of a sudden, when they're in, you can say, this your signature? Here's a video of you signing it. Why have you not done it?
You exactly right, Roland. You got these different videos out there. Somebody tried to tell that to me a couple of weeks ago. They're like, "Oh, why y'all lying on him? He didn't say that he would do such and such." And then, I pulled up the video where he said, "I'm gonna get rid of for this entire generation." To get rid of the $10,000 in student debt, an entire generation, right? But your point is that if he had a signature on a piece of paper on a specific item, then we wouldn't even have to have that debate. We wouldn't have to go fishing around trying to find audio clips and video clips because we'd have something very clear in writing that we could hold him accountable to. While we're talking about Biden, I heard you talking with Representative Kenyatta about about the polling. And one of the things I just want to encourage folks, and this goes for Pennsylvania and every other state, and we say it all the time, polls don't vote, people do. I'm old enough to remember in the state of Georgia where nobody thought that we'd be able to win one Senate seat, let alone 2 Senate seats. I'm old enough to remember when Senator Warnock was polling at like 4 or 5 single digits percentage, and then the WNBA came out and started wearing those shirts, and all of a sudden he went up. I'm old enough to remember when people had written off Joe Biden, during the primaries, and then black folks in South Carolina came back and said, no, we got something different to say. Not the direction I wanted to go, but that's what black folks in South Carolina said. So my point being, polls don't vote, people vote, and until those votes are cast, then people don't need to be going to the polls just thinking about what the polls have said ahead of time. If everybody polls based not on votes based not on what the polls say, but on what it is, who is it that best reflects your dreams and wishes? If everybody votes that way, it won't matter what the polls may have said ahead of time. We can define electability. Black folks have always defined electability. We defined it in 2020. We can define it in this election cycle. And now more than ever, it's important that we do so.
All right. Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Man, I truly appreciate it. Always glad to have you on the show.
Thank you, Roland.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?